Good evening. Today we have Sandy as our presenter. She has many accolades, but I will quote her directly on a few. Sandy says, "Not only did I raise 4 children in my first family, but I am also a foster parent to children with complex histories and behavioral issues that began 25 years ago. My husband and I have shared our home with children for whom living in a home, participating in family and community life would not have been possible without the rules and tools of the SOS for Parents program. I have walked the walk and continue to do so. We follow rules and tools of the SOS for Parents program in our home and celebrate as children learn and grow and choose more positive behaviors. Each of the pillars in the program contains the rules and tools for helping children to change their behavior in a positive way. Once you learn about the pillars, you can and will be able to understand how to respond to behavior more effectively, and you can and will learn how to empower the children in your lives to choose to cooperate. The SOS Parents program really works. When you use the ideas that pillars teach, you will be amazed by the wonderful changes that happen. Remember that learning new ways of thinking and acting takes practice and time. So be patient with yourselves and your children as you learn how to make important changes that improve your lives. So thank you very much, Sandy Cresswell. Please take it away.
Oh, thank you. And SOS for Parents was the first name of the program. So if you go to look it up online, you will look for Pillars for Success, FOR. We graduated from SOS to Pillars for Success. So I want to welcome you all. And some of you I've had the wonderful opportunity to work with already. And many of you I'm going to have a wonderful opportunity to meet tonight. So I'm very glad for that. In terms of my story, I had a brother who had challenging behavior from the time that he was very young. And my parents took him to all kinds of places, psychologists, psychiatrists, psychiatric hospitals, and nobody could seem to find solutions. And somewhere along the way, of course, this was a lot of years ago, but somewhere along the way in my own life, I made a commitment to find answers for families that my family couldn't find. And that ranges from just simple bratty behavior to more complex kinds of challenges, aggressive behavior, all kinds of other issues and challenges. So that's what this is all about. It's based on normal childhood development and understanding, creating a model that will help you to understand why children do what they do. And we're going to redefine the purpose of challenging behavior. It is no longer bad behavior. It is no longer bratty behavior. What it is a desperate attempt on the part of the child to get his or her needs met. And as we go through the program, you will learn that there are 3 basic human needs that every human being has, and children are no different. And a lot of them use techniques to get these needs met because they can't seem to figure out any other way for that to happen. So with that in mind, let's get started. And I think we're ready to go to our intro slide. So again, it's a Pillars for Success is the name of the program, and you can look us up on the web, pillarsforsuccess.com. And it's all about understanding and empowering parents and children to choose to have that behavior change in positive ways. And the outcomes, once you learn the rules and tools, truly are remarkable. The outcomes are remarkable. So we can go on to the next slide. Thank you. There we go. So there are some basic principles that I want you all to understand and to remember. Now, this is an abbreviation of the program. It's actually a 6-session program. So we're crowding everything into one session. So this is reduced to some of the major principles. But the foundation of the program is that whatever happens between an adult and a child is always about an action on somebody's part, the adult or the child, a reaction on the other person's part, and the complexity of the interaction between those 2 people. So it's a new way of looking at behavior. It's not like life was going on smoothly and everything was fine, and then all of a sudden this kid started acting out or refused to stop acting out. Whatever happens is about those three factors. And I want you to remember that as you experience challenges in your home or successes. Go ahead, we're ready. We're ready to go to the next slide, if it will.
Yeah, I'm trying. Sorry, I don't.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't know if I expressed it clearly. Thank you. So you can go ahead and just click these. We all share the same goals. You can open up the slide one click at a time. We want to create positive change by doing what? And we want, all right, we want to put an end to that challenging behavior that was driving us nuts and create positive change by motivating our children. Now listen, guys, by motivating our children to choose to cooperate. We think we can control the behavior of another human being, but the truth of the matter is the only person who can control their behavior is that person themselves. So what we want to do is create positive change by motivating our children to choose to cooperate. And we're going to use a technique we'll talk about a little bit more that I have named irresistible influence, which actually means setting things up in such a way that the child wants to do what you ask, because in some way they're going to be rewarded for doing that. This is not bribing your child. This is not forcing your child to do something by holding wonderful little toys up in front of them and saying, if you do this, you can have that. It's also a very important thing to realize that you are doing neither of those things. We are going to get in a little bit to human behavior and how children think, and you will see why irresistible influence is so appropriate. And again, we're going to use very clear behavioral communication. We're going to have it be very positive. We're as much as we can going to flip things over and focus and refocus on what we want the child to do, not what he or she has done wrong. And so the final goal is to stay in charge. And believe me, your kid feels better about things when you do that too. So let's take a look at our buddy here, the racer. Let's begin. But before we begin, I want you to take a look at her body language. What is the message you get when you're looking at her face? And how many times perhaps have you been frustrated and had a face like that? Now, she's not frustrated at that point. She's powered up and ready to race, but you also want to pay attention to your body language and your facial expression as you're communicating with your children. Next slide, please. So what I'd like to know as we start out here is if people could go to the chat and let us know what challenges they are facing that will help us address things in a more personal way as we go through the Pillars for Success training. So go ahead, please, and list any challenges you're facing. It could be even something like, he doesn't do what I tell him, she won't take a bath when I ask her to, they don't get their homework done, you know, whatever. So take a minute, and then I think what we'll do is who's ever in charge of picking those messages up, let's just read them, and I'm going to scribble them out on paper and I'll refer to them as we're going through the rest of the pillars.
You're on mute.
Unmute. Sorry. Somebody wrote their older son being touchy and emotional, sneaking things, high anxiety, questioning everything I ask, helping my preteen regulate emotions. Daughter is acting out in anger. Little one is whiny, arguing, attitude and sarcasm.
There we have an example.
We do. She's one, so she gets a pass.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Whoever did, thank you very much for sharing it. And the things you've shared, by the way, are things that many parents deal with, and almost all parents experience at some point. Some of them.
So Sandy, here's a couple more I think you should just add to your list.
Let's do it.
Anger, stealing, not completing chores, schoolwork, getting them to do it, attention issues, over apologizing, very sensitive heart, attitude and sarcasm.
Okay,
So I think those should be added to it.
attitude.
Puberty. Listening, child staying on task,
Okay,
speaking disrespectfully.
yep. I'm sure it sounds very familiar to all of us. Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other feedback that's come in?
Those are speaking disrespectfully.
Okay,
Sneaky behavior, lying,
okay. That's a great set of examples of what most parents face, at least some of the time. And for some, it gets even longer lasting and more complex. Is that it right now, Deborah?
yeah,
People-
high anxiety. What do you have, Kirsten?
People are just still writing, so
Oh,
sneak,
okay.
which I think was horsing around after being asked to stop. I'm sure there's going to be lots of examples. We all have.
Yes. But it's also nice to list them out and for each of us to hear that what we're dealing with is probably not something very unusual. And so many parents do have to deal with it. So as we hear these lists shared by other people, we're also realizing, wow, it's not just because I'm the worst parent in the world or I've got the worst kids in the world. These are many of the challenges that parents face. Yes.
All right, I think that's good.
Okay. Well, all of you, I want to thank you for your honesty. And we're going to come back and visit some of those behaviors. Every one of them are behaviors that, once again, when we talk about the reason that children, according to the pillars for success and what my research has revealed, is there are the three main reasons for challenging and defiant behavior. And we're going to cover it later in the PowerPoint. But while people have described these behaviors, I want to give it to you briefly just to think about. The first is, and I call it the ABCs of challenging and defiant behavior. The first is attention. There is nothing a human being and a child, a human being who's young, will not do to have other people pay attention to them. And by the way, if I can't get your attention positively, I know how to get it otherwise, don't I? So that you can't ignore me. So attention is one. The other is the B, basic survival, which has to do with feeling safe, a place to sleep, food to eat, things like that. Hold on one sec. And then the third one, A, B, C, is the challenge is attention, basic survival, and control and power. So again, there is nothing a human being will not do to feel a sense of power and control over their lives. So go ahead, let's go to the next slide. So, but I want you to remember, parents, that the conflicts and the quote unquote wars you get into your children are what this is about. There cannot be a war between you and your children if both armies, if both of you don't line up at the fighting line. So your kid may come to you with sleeves rolled up and just ready to, having demonstrated behavior. I'm not going to do the chores. You can't make me. Quit bothering me. Leave me alone. I don't want to do my homework. Forget it. No, I'm not lying about that. I really didn't do that. And for sure that the kid is lying. So, but there cannot be a war if both armies don't line up at the fighting line. And I'm going to show you other ways, we're going to get to it, to respond to that behavior. Let's go forward. So one of the techniques that works very well is keeping your child informed of the outcomes in advance. So first of all, I want to let you know, and we're going to come to that slide. We'll go through it very fast then, because I'm going to mention it now, that there are certain words that are, I call contaminated words, that automatically stimulate a negative response on the part of the child. And so one of those words, and I call it, like we have the F-bomb we refer to, I call this the C word, because it's a word that triggers negative responses in a kid, and the word is consequences. So ultimately, the decision through all the years that I had the foster children, we no longer use the C word for anything. We didn't deal with consequences. We dealt with outcomes for behavior. Just picked a neutral word, and you can't believe what a difference. So keeping your child informed of the outcomes, which is the C word underneath it, in advance increases positive choices and cooperation. Let them know, okay, you choose to do that. I just want you to understand that this is how I'm going to respond. Whether it's, you won't go outside to play later, or no TV tonight, whatever it is. Put away your cell phone, whatever it is. Okay, so go ahead. We'll go to the next slide. So there's another common term that's used in human communication, and it's referred to as family scripts. And family scripts are the repeated conversations that happen over and over and over again, so much to the point that you don't even recognize them. It's like when the postman, maybe brings a special package to your door that's been sent special delivery or something, and you go, oh, hi, how are you? Have a nice day. Thanks for the pack. We have these routine scripts that we use, and it's the same thing with our children. If you start listening, you're going to be very surprised as you start to hear the repeated conversations with the same wording, whether you're asking them to do their homework, whether you're asking them to share a toy, whether you're asking them to please get their dirty laundry in the laundry room, whatever it is. And the important thing is that you learn to recognize those repeated conversations. Now, some of them are going to result in positive outcomes. And when that happens, you want to remember and repeat those conversations, but there are others that are also going to lead to repeated conflict. So be listening for the family scripts in your home. Go ahead, please. And the other thing you want to remember is that when you begin to create change, to move away from this long list of negative behaviors that you were all sharing so honestly about what you're dealing with at home, that whenever there's any kind of change, whether it's positive change or negative change, when there is change, there's a sense of imbalance. It's like, different things are happening now, kind of like, what do I do? So change causes imbalance, and imbalance can often cause resistance. So some of this is the well-expected and anticipated responses to doing things differently. Go ahead. And you want to remember that that can be a factor. So, and the other rule that goes with this, in order for you to see change, first you have to change. You have to be the first one to make these changes. And again, we're going through it in a very overviewed way. We'll be doing the training in much more detail in the fall at some point when they schedule it. So in order to see change, you are the one who makes the first changes. Go ahead. Thank you. So let's go to the pillars. There are 9 basic pillars, rules and tenets for understanding why behavior happens. The first one is huge, and it's had extensive study done nationally. I know Harvard University has done major explorative studies on how children think and reason, and the difference in brain development between children and adults. So you want to remember that children think differently from adults. Their brains aren't experienced and grown to the level that an adult brain is, and they don't think or see things in the world the same way we do because of their lack of experience and their brain development. So let's go forward. Go ahead, click it again. So one of the differences leads us to ask ourselves, what was this kid thinking, and why won't he listen to me, and what am I doing wrong? And it's because it's as if you went into Mexico where they're speaking Spanish and you've now the only Spanish you know is hola or whatever, or buenos dias, and you don't know anything else. And you can't understand anything that these people are saying. And that's how it is for a child. So the difference between that often leads us to ask ourselves, what in the world was this kid thinking? And why isn't he listening to me? And what am I doing wrong? It's because we are communicating in the way adults communicate, not understanding that brain development in children and experiences in life that children have had, which are so much less than anything that you have as you proceed through your life, that's all they have to go on. And that's what they use as to back their skills. So go ahead. If anyone has a question anywhere along the way, I want you to put a little thing in the chat real quick to say question, and someone will stop the talking here and I can hear what you have to say if you're not understanding any of this. So the fact of the matter is, so often we talk about how selfish and self-centered our children are. And the truth of the matter is, it's true. Children really are as self-centered as they seem, but that's because of brain development. And it's also because of the experiences at whatever point they're at in their lives. I mean, if a baby is cared for and held and cuddled and the baby cries, you get a bottle, you check the diaper, you do all kinds of things. I mean, it starts out with everything is about the child. And gradually, as we learn to empower our children to get along in little play groups, to get along playing with the neighbors, with brothers and sisters, they begin to realize that there's things out there beyond them and their own wants and needs. But that's a process, and it takes a lifetime of experience as the child grows up. And how many people do you know, by the way, who might be adults who are kind of selfish and self-centered? In every one of these human skills, we go through these skills and we learn them at different levels. And we are able to share them at different levels, depending on the human being that we are and what the conditions are in our lives. So children really are as self-centered as they seem. Go ahead. So let's talk about a lot of ways, different ways you can reach your child. So the kid looks at you and says, you can't make me. Hey guys, when a kid looks at me and says, you can't make me, you know what I do? I mean, a lot of parents just want to roll up their sleeves and think to themselves, oh yeah, I'll show you who's in charge. I look at the kid and I say, you're absolutely right. I can't make you do anything. It's your decision. It's your decision. And then we're going to talk about how you set things up so the child who is already self-centered because of his level of cognitive and experience and growth, they are very self-centered. So we're going to set things up so children can see what they can get out of it by doing what we ask. And it is not bribery. You are speaking to the children's developmental level and experience level on planet Earth. So when a kid looks at me and says, you can't make me, I say, you're absolutely right. I can't make you do anything. Nobody can make anybody do anything. So go ahead. So there's an acronym that I've coined, I AM. And at the time I coined it, I didn't realize it was also an acronym many years ago. It was also an acronym for God. But anyway, I AM is the acronym that says it's all about me, which refers to the self-centeredness of a child. So we're going to learn to speak to that self-centeredness and help the child feel comfortable about doing what we ask, because we're making them comfortable about it, because we understand their selfishness, the quality of selfishness that's still in their experience without having grown older and learned about others and the importance of others' needs. And we're going to acknowledge and celebrate the child's power. We're going to, and we'll go into details of that. Go ahead. So, and the other thing we're going to do, and I don't know who ate the word influence, but remember the impact of irresistible influence. And irresistible influence is a technique that you use when you ask children to do things. And what you do is oh, there it is. You set things up in a way so they see how they will benefit by doing what you ask. You're not bribing them. You're not selling it to them. You are showing them from their experiential point of view and their brain development point of view, why it's a good idea to do what they're being asked. Go ahead. Again, if you have any questions along the way, please put a word into the chat and we will stop and deal with it. Pillar 2, second major principle here. Emotional age affects our feelings and behaviors. Go ahead. So I want to say for just an opener that everybody has two ages, every human being. One of the ages is our chronological age. That's based on the year we were born. And the other age we have is our emotional age, based on the developmental levels and what our needs are at any given time in our lives. And I'm sure I'm not the only adult on planet Earth who has ever had tragedy or exhausting situations happen where all of a sudden it would just feel really nice if someone could have cuddled me or put a warm blanket over me, just like you would pick up a baby and hold the baby when comfort is needed. But there are different areas of human development. These are just 4 that we're mentioning. There are probably 54, but there's physical development, there's emotional development. Children and adults have different levels of social development, cognitive development, their ability to learn and absorb information and understand it. And there's fine motor development, there's gross motor development. It just goes on and on. But these are the basic key areas of human development. And in every one of these, every human being is is not the same common age across all of them. Certainly you've heard of the kid who's, absolutely the champ on the basketball team in high school, and yet he's flunking math because he just can't do math. It's just not his thing. So we all have different developmental levels. Go ahead. So here's a question for you, parents. Whose development are we talking about anyway? And how does development affect your interactions with the children and the youth in your lives? Go ahead. Once again, we're going to revisit this concept I just shared with you, the difference between chronological age and developmental age. And so the question is, how old is the child? Don't move the slide yet. And stop and think of what you have to consider. You have to consider the different areas of development and where they are at in their various developmental levels in each of those areas versus their chronological age. Go ahead. So how old is the child? And here's one. How old are you? So stop a sec, don't forward any more slides. So when we ask, how old are you? Now the question is, where are you at in each of these developmental areas, your emotional development, your social development, and depending on where we are able to respond and to be contributing to positive social interactions if we're in that place. But if it's all about power and control at that moment, and we don't care what the other person thinks, we're going to get that power and control. And you people have all given me, I'm just looking at my list here, attention issues, homework issues, listening, being disrespectful, sneaky behavior. That's all about power and control. So let's take a look at triggers. Go ahead, we're on the slide now that's on the screen. Do you ever feel the Hulk growing inside of you when your kids are driving you nuts? And you want to, by the way, pay attention to what you're feeling and how you're responding when your kids are driving you nuts. You want to learn what your triggers are. You want to identify your triggers, because until you identify your triggers, you're not going to be able to control them. And furthermore, you want to identify your children's triggers and maybe even what you're doing that may tend to trigger them more, because your purpose is not to trigger them to be more defiant and more frustrated. Your purpose and goal is to speak to them in a way that they will want to comply. So you want to learn about your triggers and what's triggering you and by the child and the situation, and the same for them. And believe me, your children know your triggers. They know how to make you upset. They know how to satisfy you. And I'm sure every one of you have experienced that. So what do you expect? Well, the first thing you want to do to contribute toward that positive outcome is avoid lectures at all costs. And I love this. When you begin to lecture your children, and we're all so good at it, when you begin to lecture your children, when you get all done, I want you to look at your kid and I want you to say, could you just tell me what I just said to you, please? Could you kind of give me a summary of what I just said to you? And 9.9 times out of 10, the kid is going to look at you and go, I don't know, because they aren't even listening. Now, there's different languages we use when we talk to our children. We can talk in very highfalutin components of the meaning of behavior and our feelings about it. But when we are trying, and those things aren't bad, but again, they challenge based on where your child is at in their brain development, they challenge your child to really understand what your message is. So what parents do, and what we encourage parents to do, is to use behavioral language to clearly state, go ahead, and I'll explain to you what behavioral language is, to clearly state what is expected, when it's expected, and how you're going to celebrate the completion of them doing it. So you don't want your child to be polite. I don't know what polite means. And your child probably doesn't either, but you might, but if in your thinking, you're saying, I want you to be polite, maybe when the child and you see another adult, you'd like the child to say, and the adult says hello, you'd like the child to say hello back to the adult instead of just turn away or look away. Whatever the behavior is that you want to tell it to the child in those behavioral terms. You don't want them to be cooperative. I don't know what that means. If it's when you and Bobby are playing, I want you to share the ball with Bobby. So maybe you two could play catch together because he's feeling badly that he can't ever touch the ball. So why don't you play catch with him? That's the behavior that you're expecting. And I'd like you to start that right now. So if you can start it now, great. And if not, I can hold the ball a while you think about it, because maybe your child is actually not involving Bobby and watching him get more and more frustrated because your child is controlling the ball. And then your final word to the child might be, and wow, once you're able to do that, once you choose to do that, because you empower the child to know that he or she is making these choices. Once you choose to do that, how do you think we could celebrate after you and Bobby have played catch for 3 times back and forth? What do you think we could do? And you might say, well, I got some gum in my pocket. Maybe I could share that. Or, you decide what it is. But have yourself armed with whatever it is you might want to share positively with the child. You don't want it to be, well, when we get home tonight and are having dinner, there should be a close connection between the behavior and the outcome. So if you're going to celebrate something that happened that was very positive on the part of your child, you don't want to have them have to wait several hours to celebrate it. It's going to have much more impact when it's closely aligned with when the behavior happened. Go ahead, please. And please feel free to stop and ask questions if something does not make sense. Okay. Pillar 3 go back to pillar 3, please. Thank you. Pillar 3 says that disruptive, challenging behavior is actually a way of coping. This is how the child copes. Let's take a little dive into it and see what we're talking about. So we've already mentioned them. We're going to review them now. And I wish we were all in the same room because I'd ask you all, why is the child behaving this way? In all of my years, I have dedicated my entire life from before college, my entire life to dealing and working with children. And I have, in every setting on planet Earth, from home to residential to prison settings, to you name it, and I have been there, to school settings, and I have found there are only 3 reasons. And this model of 3 reasons makes it so easy to understand and to be able to have an impact on redirecting the child based on understanding that the 3 reasons are attention, and we talked about that a little bit already, the basic survival, place to sleep, food to eat, things like that. And then go ahead, the C is control and power. Every human being, and just think about yourselves, wants to have a sense of control and power in their lives. And children are no different. Go on, please. And they will do anything to get those needs met. Are they aware at any given time that they are trying to get those needs met? No, they're not cognitively aware of it, but they are certainly behaving in the way that you can identify and recognize what's going on. And once you've identified and recognized what's going on, you're so much more effectively able to respond to the behavior. So the question is, if a kid could establish balance for himself in a more acceptable way, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't a kid do it? Why wouldn't the kid say, hey, mom, could we sit down a minute? Or dad, could we sit down a minute? I'd like to talk to you because I'm feeling kind of frustrated because I feel like I can't really control anything about what we're doing when we're playing at home, me and my brother and sister. No, kids don't think about it. And they don't know how to establish the balance around it. They just do whatever they can to try and get that need met. They don't even identify that the need is there. This comes from thousands of hours of watching and interacting with children of all ages and all settings. But if a kid could establish balance for himself or herself, why wouldn't they? Go ahead. So I'm looking at your list again, and we're talking about power struggles. And needless to say, many of the things you've put in the list, stealing, not doing homework, not doing schoolwork, being disrespectful, being sarcastic, horsing around and not stopping till it gets out of hand. Every power struggle that any two people get into, whether it's a parent and a child, to adults, any power struggle has a winner and a loser, which is not good. Because when someone is the loser in a power struggle, they will do anything to restart that power struggle at some point so that they can get to be the winner. Nobody wants to be the loser. So one of the things we're going to do, and you're going to get very adept at, is offering your children choices. It sounds like such a simple concept, but we forget about using it and how powerful it can be. So if the kid isn't going to clean if you say, hey, Susie, please get your clothes back up on the hanger. You're not going to say straighten up your room, remember, because that doesn't tell Susie what she needs to do. But if you say the clothes that are on the floor need to be hung back up on hangers, any clothes that you've worn already or your pajamas need to be taken to the laundry room, you give them the specific behaviors of what you're looking for. And then you let them know afterward how you're going to celebrate these behaviors. Boy, after you get that room done and the laundry's in the laundry room and the pants are hung back on the hangers and the shoes are back in the bottom of the closet, and you might even involve your child in the planning process. How do you think we could celebrate? So in my home, when I had the foster children, oh my God, hot chocolate was just the most desirable thing in the world. And we would sit down and have a hot chocolate. And sometimes I'd even put these little miniature marshmallows in it just to celebrate once they got the work done. So you're also going to regain control by giving your child choices. No, I'm not going to clean my room. Well, that's fine. That's your choice. I'm just wondering, maybe after lunch, do you think that you could take one part of it and get that part cleaned up? How about if you just get all your shoes back in the closet? How about just that one part? You think you could do that and see what the kid says? And let's assume the kid keeps arguing with you and saying, no, I can't. And you give him 3 other choices and he can't do those either. Then you say to him, no problem. I'll take care of it. But I want you to know that if there's things that I think are in the way, this is what I used to do. I'm going to bring a box in with me, and I'm probably going to put some of the stuff in the box because, gosh, the other day I tripped on some toys and I nearly fell down. So I might end up packing some of the toys up and putting them up in the garage. But, you know, that's your choice if you want me to clean your room. And then you be sure, if the child says, yeah, you do it because I'm not gonna, you be sure to maybe put a few things away, and the kid's going to come out later and say, hey, where's my Matchbox cars? How did that happen? Or where's my computer? Or, you know, whatever it is, my phone. Well, you told me you didn't want to do it. And you said, yeah, go ahead, mom, then you do it. So I did it. And I'm really tired though. Cleaning that room all by myself was a lot of work. So no, I'm not going to get the box right now, maybe. And then you decide when you're going to give it back. Maybe by tomorrow morning, maybe I need a couple of days, you just decide. And then you can say to your child, and next time it's time to clean your room, I hope you give it one of two choices. You either clean it, say, sure, mom, I'll take care of it. And you let the kid know what clean your room means, specifically the things that need to be moved or hung up in the room to call it clean. And then you ask your kid, would you like me to help you? Or do you think you could do it yourself? And let's say, oh gosh, that sounds like so much work. I don't want to do it. Well, which part do you think you could do now before we have lunch or, whatever it is? And you begin to give them control and hold them to that commitment and let them know that if there's things still left around, you're probably going to do the same thing because that's the only solution is to just pack it up and get rid of it so you guys don't keep arguing about it. And you just be as innocent and neutral as can be. Go ahead. Again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat room. I think I talked so long, someone fell asleep at the slides. We're ready for the next one. Thank you. And so what do you do if there's total refusal? Go ahead. Click it again. I'm not going to do it and you can't make me. So don't continue to argue. Just simply acknowledge for the kid, okay, I hear you, or simply let them know I'm listening. And then you can offer to do it. You share your plan, how you're going to do it. Simple story like what I just told you before about cleaning a room. And then the child has the choice after that to do it or not. And don't argue with them. Say, if you choose not to, I will, but just understand that this is how I'm going to do it. I don't want you to do it that way. Well, then if I do it, that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm letting you know. So maybe you'll decide to do it in your way. But this is what has to be put away while you're doing it. And then you make sure the child understands the outcomes for his decisions. And if you do it, wow, maybe that's another chance for us to celebrate with a hot chocolate when you choose to clean it up. That would be perfect. And you hang up your clothes in the closet and you're sure that the dirty laundry's in the laundry room and that all your toys are back in the toy box. Sure, we'll find a way to celebrate. What do you think would be a fun thing to do? Empower your child to help with the discussion. And then you don't polarize the situation by flexing your adult authority muscle, because if you don't do it, then I'm not going to do something else for you. You think of whatever it is. Don't try to do that. Just simply be at their level and avoid a bigger headache. So if you've ever had a kid, and going by your list here, I'd say there are definitely possibilities that you've had kids do this. Let's say a kid who's just yelling, no, I don't want to do it, you get, and crying and whatever. And you're asking them to settle down. You're sitting there uncomfortable watching them. And what if you just simply said, wow, that is great crying. Do you think you could cry for one more minute? Try it. And how about if you slam your body on the floor again, just throw yourself down like you did last time, because you do that 3 times. You can't believe how well that works. The kid looks at you like, what are you, nuts? Because they're doing that behavior to try and have a sense of power and control. And when you encourage repetition of it, you're saying it's not a controlling behavior. And the other thing you want to do is not get off into adult conversations about the morals of good choices and learning to cooperate when mom and dad ask you something, or working together as a family. Just remain very behavioral. Children's brains don't think on those high-level conversations. So very behavioral about the task you want done and what the outcome will be for that, how you're going to celebrate that task. And if it's not done, what you're going to do with the undone task, the materials that are still not dealt with. And then the other is, I have often set up systems with a child where, they're wasting time, they're refusing, and I just let them know, I certainly can't stop you from screaming and yelling, but I want you to know that I'm going to get the time back later, because all this noise and screaming is wasting my time. And so later on, there's going to have to be some quiet time on your part before you can, maybe play with the favorite doll or get the race car out of the toy box, whatever, but that you're going to get the time back. Go ahead. And you're going to, the way to avoid, I don't know, I'm sure many of you have seen this between two kids where it's a, and how did that happen, boys? Or brother and sister or sisters. Well, he did it. No, she did it. No, she did it. And you're just going to avoid the he did it, she did it conflict by simply saying, well, what I used to do is I'd have one of the kids sit like outside the bedroom in the hallway, and I'd have another kid. We had a laundry room in our home, and I called that our safe space. And it was just simply a washer and a dryer and a floor space. And I used to have a soft blanket in there. I used to have pillows in there. I made it, the goal was to be a comfortable place without distraction and without ways to get negative attention. And sometimes what I would do is I would get the time back, and one would be asked to sit in the hall with a blanket and a pillow to be comfortable, and the other would be in the safe space. And that's what we did. And I'd set the timer for maybe 2 minutes or whatever, and I'd thank the kids afterwards and say, I think we're ready for a new beginning now. And if not, we'd repeat it again if the behavior continued. And another way to avoid the he did it conflict is, and have you ever had this? He did it. No, he did it. No, she did it. And I just look at them all. And again, you know what, guys? I don't know who did it, but I'm going to wait and see if you can agree on how it happened. And so again, I'm going to sit you each in a little, your own quiet space, so you have some uninterrupted time to think about what happened. And I'll come back and check with you in 2 minutes. And if we can all agree on what happened and we can figure out what to do about it, great. And if not, then we'll probably spend another minute thinking about it. And again, very low key, very even tempered. And you want to remember that your nonverbal language is much more powerful than your verbal language. So if you're steaming inside, and as you're trying to represent being calm on the outside, the kid is reading all those waves of tension and anger going on inside of you. And it's okay to be honest about that. Yeah, you're right. I don't like what just happened. That is not okay. Okay, so go ahead. Let's see how we're doing on time here. Okay, we're going to speed up a little. So pillar 4 is how we see things, how we perceive and view things influences our relationships. Go ahead. What you think and how you think things are happening trigger your responses and how you feel about it. And it's important for you to understand that. It may not be the same as how the kid perceives what's going on, but how you see it and what you think about it triggers behavior and feelings. Go ahead. And again, I'm intentionally going to speed up now. And what you communicate, how you communicate, affects what you communicate. So if you look at Bob there, the guy in the picture, who says, sweetie, I'm not mad. I actually totally forgot about it. What is his body language saying? I am pissed. And you want to remember that your facial expression and your body language is what gives the true message of communication. Go ahead. Now, there are certain words, and we have more words in our list, but these are just an example. There are certain words that trigger negative responses from a child. And furthermore, the ones that we're about to talk about in a second are common to all children and families, but there are going to be words in your family that are unique to your family that might also trigger negative responses. So you want to watch for that when you say certain things. Are you getting a response from the child that's very negative? Because you can also change your vocabulary and your body language, perhaps, so that the child gets a more positive message and an opportunity to comply, because they're not so busy digging their heels in to say, you can't make me. So one of the words, as I told you, I call it the C word, is consequences. So once I realized that how much that is overused with children in all settings in their lives, I never used it again, and we had outcomes. The other is the word, like kids who have to go to the timeout room. Took that totally out of our vocabulary, and we had quiet spaces or a safe space. And it always had a blanket and a pillow and a soft animal it's just a place to settle down, not a place to execute you and isolate you in loneliness, but it's a place to settle down. And then this word punishment is also a very negative word and will trigger negative behaviors. So what we referred to was a commonly accepted word that we're looking for solutions. The solution for this is going to be not the punishment. Okay, go ahead. So I like the oh, wait, somebody wrote, I like the solutions. Oh, I guess replacing the punishment word. Okay, so let's go into attributes and identity very quickly. All of these are the subtleties that control your communication and your understanding of what your children are doing. So an attribute is a quality or a characteristic built into someone, but the identity is actually who the person is. So let's take a look at our friend. Go to the next slide, please. So here's Herman, and how would you describe Herman's attributes and his identity? And if we were all in one room, we would be able to talk about that. Herman's identity looks to me like he's a rhinoceros, but his attributes are he's striped, he's kind of pudgy, he's black and white. There's a difference between who he is and his attributes. Go ahead. Now, this becomes critically important in your interactions with your children. So the closer you get, go ahead and finish clicking on the slide to addressing, oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back to, you can leave it like that, but let's go back to attributes and identity. So how that affects, and I must have left that slide out as I modified this presentation. The difference between attributes, yeah, just leave it right there, please. The difference between the attributes and identity is very much in control of how you think, perceive, and respond to your child. So do you have a bad child, or do you have a child with bad behavior? Do you have an aggressive child? Now you've taken aggression and the child's identity and merged them, or do you have a child with aggressive behavior? Now you've got a child, very separate and unique, and then you've got this behavior that you have to work on. So it's terribly important that you keep separated in your mind the difference between the attributes of the child and the child's identity. Go ahead. And behaviors are one of their attributes. So how can something seem so hard? What I'm trying to explain to you is that the closer you get to addressing the child's needs at their developmental level, using their language in a behavioral way, in a calm voice and with a calm attitude, go ahead, and offering choices and stating outcomes and showing the child how he'll benefit, he or she, how they will benefit by doing what you ask, and doing whatever you can to avoid power struggles, because remember the rules of a power struggle. Whenever there's a power struggle, there is a winner or a loser. A winner and a loser, and that power struggle will always repeat itself. Go ahead. So you want to avoid power struggles. The closer, the more you can follow these 7 concepts, the closer you get to being able to achieve positive incomes, that'd be nice. The closer you get to positive outcomes. Go ahead. Thank you. So here's another question for the child, and you can click on those. One of the things children deeply want to know, although they're not aware of it, is, am I safe and am I important? How do I know that you know I'm here? So mom and dad, or caretaker and parent, how do you let the kid know? How can a child feel safe if the parent or the adult can't control them? And what does a child need to do to know that you will keep me safe? And how do I know who's in charge if I can bully you? These are all questions that the child doesn't ask. The child experiences it, breathes it, and feels it. So that's our goal, is to be able to respond positively in each of those areas in many of the ways that I've already shared. Go ahead. Thank you. So it's very, very important. Boundaries are an extremely important principle. So number 1, the very definition of safety for a child is fair, and for an adult actually, is fair and clearly defined boundaries. So what is testing behavior? Where the kid keeps poking and prodding and testing and refusing. And I'm just looking at all this list you guys gave me, and having issues of paying attention, all of this, it's testing behavior. And most of that behavior is about is poorly defined boundaries. You want to be very clear and behavioral in explaining to the child what the boundaries are for living and functioning in your home and school and wherever else. Go ahead. And we always want to focus. Unfortunately, as human beings, we get hung up in repetitive focus on what the child did wrong. What we want to do is intentionally teach ourselves to focus on the replacement behavior for what we would like the child to do instead. And we're going to keep clicking along here so we get time for all this. Go ahead. And so instead of focusing on the negative behavior, what if you focused instead every time there was positive behavior? Wow, I asked you to clear the table, and not only did you clear your plate, but you cleared your napkin and your spoon too and took them over by the dishwasher. Thank you. What if you focused on nothing but the absence of negative behavior, found positive things? Pillar 5, adult responses can alter the child's behavior. Go ahead. We've already talked about boundaries, and it is amazing how firm and clear boundaries will set you free and set the child free. And what is the kiss of death? Go ahead. So there's a fancy term in research called intermittent reinforcement, which basically means inconsistent reinforcement. Sometimes you praise or reward the child for doing it, and sometimes you don't. So it's the not being consistent. The most powerful reinforcement of behavior is not positive reinforcement, and it is not negative reinforcement. It is intermittent reinforcement. So you want to be very sure that you're not giving intermittent reinforcement to behaviors that you want to change. And somebody put a comment in, but it disappeared off the slide. I didn't get a chance to look at it. Can that go back in there? Specifically, and I can't read the whole, I can't even see the whole thing. It says specifically those who have term, and then the sentence cuts off. I'm sorry, Aisha, I don't know what it's saying. Let's go on to the next slide though, so we can finish. Thank you for your contribution though. So remember.
Sandy, this is Deborah. So what the piece was is children need to know where their boundaries are. And then someone said, Aisha said, but I feel like they know them, which is why they test.
They would not.
They test the parents.
That's true. And what they're waiting for, they don't sit in a private, they don't sit on their bed in the morning or late at night and say, I'm uncomfortable about the boundaries. Let me see if I can't figure out how to get mom to be more or dad or Uncle Joe or my foster mom to be more consistent with it. They don't think that way. They just act and react. So the concept is we set the boundaries, but how consistently do we maintain them? How much of the emphasis is a positive on maybe the 2 times out of 10 that they do respect the boundaries, that you remember to reward those opportunities. And I would probably just not even pay attention to the others. I would say, well, you know, those were choices you made, but we're not celebrating those. We will celebrate the 2 times that you did choose to cooperate. So again, it's how carefully you focus and reward and respond in positive ways to boundaries that are correctly followed. And when they are not, that you let the child know in advance what the outcomes will be. And that's like that C word, but the outcomes will be for those behaviors. And if they are testing behaviors, negative testing behaviors, you let them know. And the other thing is, and we'll get to that slide, but I'll mention it now, is that there are 2 characteristics. One is called sympathy, and the other is called empathy. Sympathy is a feeling that you have for another person. Let's say they fell down and got hurt. Let's say they couldn't get dessert because they didn't clear their dishes, whatever it is, you can offer them sympathy. But empathy is even more powerful. And that's when you come alongside the child and you almost feel their pain. You let them know, I know this is hard. I know this is so hard. And I'm sorry that you have to go through this, but I bet you soon you're going to learn that when I ask you to do these things, we can celebrate. And then it'll be your choice to decide whether you want to do that or not. So you come alongside the child. So boundaries actually give the child more freedom, because once they clearly know the boundaries, once you clearly set them and clearly reinforce them continuously the same way, then the testing behavior will gradually decrease and eventually disappear. And when it doesn't, then you've got to ask yourself the question, why is the child still testing? Or, gee, they seem to be doing it the right way, for the week, and now they're testing again. It's because they're revisiting. There are different studies of how long it takes to change a human behavior. And some of them are numbers and numbers and numbers of days. There's even one that says 200 days to change a human behavior. So, and you can do a search online. How many days does it take? What does research show? How many days does it take to change a human behavior? So they will go back and test and retest. But eventually, if your responses are consistent, you will have the consistent change begin to occur. But they may slip back and go back and retest again. And then you just keep your boundaries and you understand what's going on. And eventually, those testing behaviors, if your responses are consistent, those testing behaviors, and calm and caring, those testing behaviors will reduce and disappear. Go ahead, please. Oh, there was another. I think I just missed a comment. I'm sorry. It just flew off the screen. So I'm going to let you take a look at the Pillars for Success website. But things that are done in concrete ways rather than just talk are very, very powerful. And there's a couple of very powerful tools that are used in the Pillars for Success program by parents who choose to. And I can tell you that every foster kid I had in my home had a little notebook with point sheets. And I'm not going to go into the details of all of it now. But what it listed was, and sometimes I would decide what went on the point sheet, and sometimes the child would contribute. I would empower the child to give me their thoughts, but it might be things like brush his teeth, just behaviors, makes bed, helps set the table, whatever those are, puts books in backpack when it's time to go to school. And these point sheets, and you can look for them online and you'll see them. But the point sheets also organize a system for listing behaviors. We used to do the point sheets. They were written out for the kids if it was very young kids, and instead of listing like put snowy boots on rug, coming in the house, whatever it was, that sometimes it would be written, sometimes there'd be pictures if it was for younger children. So I encourage you to look at the website and take a look for point sheets and contracts, because they're very concrete tools. Children are concrete thinkers. They're very concrete tools for measuring and helping them to take a look at what they've done and for you to reward them. Go ahead.
Well, Sandy, here's a question.
Okay.
How do you choose, goes back to the outcome, please. How do you choose what outcomes will be? I try to let natural outcomes be a great teacher, but sometimes others are needed. I struggle to not be too harsh. How long should you lose your phone? Forever? Seems about right, or being too lenient.
So if you set expectations, and let's say the outcome for them is going to be time and access to their phone, you might even at some point say to the child, I'm confused because it seems to me that more and more phone time is going away, and you're still repeating those behaviors that cause phone time to disappear. And it seems like you hardly ever have your phone. And I might just ask the kid, can you explain to me what that's about? Do you really not like having a phone? Or, and then I might allow the child, if it's turning into just a negative repetition of negative behavior, and use or lack of use of a phone is not serving as an outcome for how the child chooses to complete the requested behaviors or not, then I might say to the kid, you know, this isn't working. I'm wondering, what do you think might help you remember to get these things done? How should we write them differently? I begin to empower the child. So what I listed on the point sheet was Susie will, you know, whatever it is, do her homework before. We'll put her phone away on the kitchen counter until her homework is done every night. But I'm noticing that you don't ever get your homework done and don't ever have use of your phone. So can you help me understand? Are you missing your phone, or don't you really care that much? Or is the homework too hard? What can we do to make it easier for you to do the tasks like getting your homework done, so that you can have special kinds of things? Maybe the phone doesn't even feel special to you. I know I love it when you and I have a little tea party. Would you like to do that instead? I mean, you work with the child, and I would involve them in the conversation. And I would say, well, you know, getting the homework done, that's not really an option. That's something that's expected of every student who goes to school. So how can we put together an agreement so that the work gets done, and then we have a way of celebrating it? And I would do it that way. But if what you're doing is not achieving any change in the behavior, and there is still the absence of that positive thing, whether it's the phone or, you know, TV time or whatever it is, then I would sit down and have the conversation with the child. What would help you choose to get that done? And see what happens, see what they come up with. And if they say, I don't know, I think I'd look at the kid and say, you know what, I don't know either. Let's both think about it. But in the meantime, the work's not getting done, and the only plan we have is the phone. So until you and I can work together to come up with a plan that will work, I'll hold on to the phone, and you decide what you're going to do about the homework. So it's completely off of who's going to make who do what. It's just simply saying, we're just going to hold it like it is, which means you're basically saying to the kid, but you're not, because you're saying it in a very nice way, you ain't getting that phone, kid. And the kid's basically saying, I ain't doing my homework. And you're warmly and caringly saying, we keep repeating the same things. And I don't think we're not celebrating that we found a solution. It's not that you chose not to do what I asked. It's that we're not able to celebrate that we found a solution. Can you and I figure out a solution that might work? So it might even be something like, well, maybe I could do, you know, part of my homework and then use the phone for 20 minutes. And then you kind of work with the kid. Sometimes those power and control issues are so strong that the kid will set up situations where there's almost no opportunity for a positive outcome, because they're so busy digging their heels in, just letting you know, you can't push me around. But if you come alongside in a caring, empathic way, similar to what my conversation I just mentioned, I think you might eventually have a different outcome. And if a few days later the same thing's happening, you can say, you know, I don't want to keep bothering us with this, but I just want to let you know that if the phone is important to you, and maybe it's not, maybe I'm just thinking something that isn't even really true, but then I'm kind of sad for you that you don't get to use it. I'm wondering if there's some other way we can figure out how to solve this getting the homework done stuff, you know, and just do that. You come alongside the kid, you hold your boundaries, you keep your limits, and you come alongside the kid and say, I feel like this isn't working. And Are you okay with it this way? And then I might even toss in, gee, if it's never going to be used, I'm not sure why we're even paying for a phone. Maybe we should just return the phone. You're not threatening the kid. You're coming alongside them saying, I'm trying to look at solutions. And we've not been able to find them. Not you are still refusing, but we've not been able to find them. So try
Sandy,
that. Yes.
All right, I just want to give you a time check. You've got
I
40 minutes.
know. I know. I'm here. I don't know if you guys can see me, but I'm watching my clock. Go ahead. I know if you get me too passionate about this, we'll be here till 10 tonight. Okay. So it's very important that when you set your boundaries and you set your limits, that you be, and you set your outcomes, that you be consistent. Because if you are inconsistent, which is the same thing as intermittent reinforcement, if you are inconsistent, you will just increase the testing behavior on the part of the child. Okay. So the call on reviewing the rules of a power struggle, it is so important. Whenever a power struggle occurs, there's always a winner and a loser. And why do you want to avoid it? Because when there is a winner and a loser, the loser does not like to lose. And that power struggle will get repeated. Next slide. So the rubber band rule. The rubber band rule is a very simple rule to follow, but it's powerful. When the child follows directions and cooperates, you stretch that rubber band. Well, go back a sec. You stretch that rubber band and you give them more freedom. And as soon as you see testing behaviors, little pushing boundaries, you decrease that freedom back again. So as they're able to be successful in maintaining boundaries that you have set and agreed upon, that's great. And even if the child didn't agree that you have clearly set that boundary, you give them more freedom. And as soon as you see that be challenged, you tighten the freedom. Okay. And no, we're good. Go to the next one. And all behaviors have outcomes. Go ahead. Should you protect your child from unhappy or negative outcomes? I say no. The world isn't like that. What, if I took a gun and robbed the local liquor store, and the cops arrested me, I mean, that's going to happen. And that's just the way it is. So we have to understand that all of our behaviors have outcomes. You can go down to the next slide now. So you can decide, and the rewards, it's very nice to pat them. It's very nice to hug them. Children and their development, their brain development, are concrete thinkers. So they respond and experience the joy of being issued a surprise with concrete kinds of things, whether it's a little piece of candy, concretely being able to sit in front of the TV for longer. Mom puts everything away, or dad, so they can play a game or go for a walk together. Use concrete rewards to reinforce positive behavior. Go ahead. So, and remember the power of family scripts. Once you all start listening for your family scripts, you're going to be amazed. These are the repeated conversations you have that you don't even realize you are repeating over and over again. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. Please start listening, because you can't be in control of them if you're not aware they're occurring. Go ahead. Who are you kidding? Let's see. So here's the mom saying, or the dad, okay, then I'll give you one more chance. The kid just blew it at the point you set the limit, and you're saying, I'll give you one more chance. Guess what you're teaching him? And how about just this once, can't I? But you just told him he couldn't. And now he's saying, just this once, can't I? Well, if you give in, then what you just said didn't matter. And the parent who's thinking, I told him no, and I'm not backing down. Well, sometimes your no may have been, you need to start thinking about that. That might have been a very vindictive no. It might not have, because you know what, we're emotional beings also. It's not just our children. So you want to think about it. And if you've said something just to flex your adult authority muscle because you're upset, that may be a problem. So did I just flip my screen, or did something happen with you guys? I'm looking at a very small slide right now. Where are we at? Can someone talk to me?
On the Who Are You Kidding slide.
I, okay, I have a whole different window I'm looking at. This is really weird. Let's see.
Rachel, click the next.
Oh, okay.
My entire screen just changed.
Okay, now we're at pillar 6.
Okay, that's what I needed. Okay, thank you. Okay, so, and I have no idea why mine is shrunk now, but anyway, you have to remember that for each of us, what is really happening is defined by what we think is happening. And so if your child sees, let's say, you and your husband or two adults having a very serious conversation, and maybe sometimes he's seen adults strike out to one another, if he thinks it's going to turn into a physical fight, it doesn't matter what's really happening. What matters is what the child thinks is happening. And that's the same for you. So you want to be very sure that your perceptions are clear. And if you feel that your child's aren't, you want to be very sure to address that with him and to explain to him what's going on. Okay. And how messages are communicated. So we have so many ways of communicating them. And are we always aware of it? Because you are always transmitting messages to other people in ways that you're not even aware of. Some of it is our words, our body language, our tone of voice, our facial expression, the feelings that we're emoting, and we can actually emote feelings. So you want to be very sure that you understand the many ways you communicate. Let's go to the next slide. Let me know when you're there because I'm not even on that same window.
Hey, Sandra, what happened to pillar 5?
I'm there.
We've got pillar 6, but where's pillar
Oh.
5?
Well, pillar 5, wait, hold on one sec. Pillar 5, we got down to the rubber band rule. We did.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
I think we're, we talked about the family scripts, and then the last one in pillar 5 is who are you kidding? So a parent is saying, okay, I'll give you one more chance, but wait a sec, mom and dad, you just set the boundaries and now you're saying, I'll give you one more chance. What have you just taught your child? That those boundaries don't matter because you're going to give them one more chance. Or just this once, can't I? You just gave him the rules and now you're saying, well, just this once, it's okay. You've just started the whole testing process again. I told him no, and I'm not backing down. You know, maybe you told him no in a frustrated, angry moment, and you want to take a second to think about it. Was that a logical decision on your part? Or I was really angry, but I didn't let the kid know. That is not true. You communicate in so many different ways, emotionally, physically, facial expression, all of it, body language, that believe me, your kid knows how you're feeling. Okay, so we got down to, so we're in pillar 6. We saw the little kitty looking in the mirror and seeing a lion. We saw the how language, how messages are communicated. Now we're on effective communication is spoken in the I am language. So in other words, if you want a child to understand what it is you're talking about, you want to understand developmentally where their brain is at, and you don't have to be a nuclear scientist or a Harvard professor to do it. You know your kids, and you want to just take a minute and pause and think about it. So is the kid very focused on what their needs are? Yes, they are. And so you want to talk about with the kid in this language of how things will affect them. It's all about me. You want to remember that they see themselves as the center of the universe. That's their experience until they learn what it's like to get to have interactions in a bigger world. Effective communication. Are we on that slide yet? I'll just assume it. I'm on it. And it's
Yes, we are.
okay, and it's about, because I don't have your, I don't know what happened to it, but it's gone. Effective communication is spoken using I am. It's all about me. And we understand that if we speak to the child from the child's point of view, the child will be much more likely to understand what we're saying. We gradually, slowly, as we develop, as our brains develop, as our experience in life develops, as our relationships teach us, we gradually learn to see beyond ourselves into what other people are communicating and what their needs are, but that is a long process. Okay, so effective communication, again, your messages to your kids should be short. I guarantee you, give your kid a lecture, and when you get all done, ask him, could you tell me what I just said to you? And you're going to get, I don't know. Okay, you want to use behavioral terms. You don't want the child to be lectured about being polite or acting like a young lady. I don't know what that means. You need to specify exactly what behaviors. And then you want to let them know what the outcome's going to be for their choice. And then you need to follow through. So here's another one. Have you tried whispering? I hope you're on that slide. That's where I am. This is so powerful. Try sometimes saying something to your kid, maybe give them a little hand gesture that says, come on over to me, and say something to them in a whisper and see what happens. It's amazing how you can get their attention. And it might be, thank you so much for helping with whatever, or it might be, did you hear me? I asked you to please pick up your shoes and put them on now, whatever it is, in a whisper. Or thanks so much for listening. This is fun to whisper, isn't it? I like whispering to you. Let's go to pillar 7. Win-win outcomes are possible. And the next one, the slide starts with be patient. So this is the research on human behavior. It can take between 8 different research comes up with different results. So this one that I, after studying a number of them, it takes between 18 and 254 days to learn a new behavior. So the reminders for taking your child through the process, and by the way, taking yourself through the process, is to be calm, speak to your child in behavioral terms as far as expectations and what the outcomes will be, and be aware of both negative and positive family scripts. I hope you start hearing those, because you're going to be very surprised once you start identifying them, how many there are. And you're going to learn that for all of us, knowing what our boundaries are actually gives us more freedom, because we don't have to keep testing and finding out what the boundaries are. So we can spend our energy enjoying functioning within those boundaries instead of constantly testing them. And you want to be very proactive and set up positive expectations and positive outcomes, not wait for things to fall apart so then you react. And you always want to show the child how he or she is going to benefit. So let's go on to pillar 8. Success equals avoiding arguments. So we're going to look at staying focused on the replacement behavior. How many of you, and I hope that you will think about this very, very carefully and identify how many times you point out to the child what he or she is doing wrong. It's just our human nature to do it. It's not because you're a bad parent. And what you want to do is stay focused on the replacement behavior. You want to remind the child what the expectation is and how you're going to celebrate when that happens. And if it happens 3 times in a day, you're going to celebrate 3 times or 5 times in a day, whatever it is. Going on to the next slide, no surprises. Always let the child know in advance what the outcomes for his or her choices are. So you choose to cooperate and help put away the toys. That's great. Gosh, would you like to decide which closet they go in? But you understand, if I put away the toys, then I've got this box right here, and I'm just going to put them in the box and put them up high on the garage shelf so that we don't have to keep cleaning up the same toys and arguing about cleaning them up. So if you put them away, you can be deciding where and in control of where you put them. And if I put them away, then I'm going to do the same thing. So it's up to you. And let's assume the kid lets that whole dialogue continue until you calmly put the toys in the box, because the kid's testing to see, will you really do it? And it's not for you to be angry. It's not for you to be frustrated. It's very factual. And you just look at the kid, and you can even empathize with them. You can say, let's say they're crying, yeah, but you're going to take my favorite doll. I am so sorry. And I know how hard this is for you. So next time, I hope you decide to put the toys away. But for a while, we're going to put this box, and then you decide where, and put it where it can't become an argument over touching it. And let the kid know when those items will be back. Okay, next slide is effective communication. And you want to remember that there has to be a connection between what you feel and what you say. And how many times have you had smoke coming out of your nose and you're gritting your teeth and grinding your teeth and you're saying to the kid, no, I'm not upset. No, you want to be very effective and honest about what is going on between what you are feeling and what is happening. And your child will test and retest and test again. That's the next slide. And you want to remember that. And the more testing behavior you're going to get, the more opportunity, instead of saying, my kid's driving me nuts, the more opportunity you're going to have is to demonstrate how consistently your responses will be delivered. So we'll go on to the next one that starts with the word disengage. And it says avoid power struggles by disengaging, meaning backing away from the power struggle. And just simply, it's your choice. But I just want you to know that this is how I'm going to respond. So I'll count to 10 and then I'll respond. And I hope you can count to 10. You can say, I'll look at my watch, or, if you have a watch, or my phone, and I'll wait for 1 minute. It's your choice. But then I just want you to know in advance that this is what I'm going to do if such and such is your choice. Okay, let's go to the next one with the pencil. E equals MC squared. So what I'm sharing with you is not rocket science, and you don't have to be an Albert Einstein to be an expert at parenting. Okay. And you want to remember that resistance on the part of the child and failure are not the same. Okay. You are working with redesigning your interactions and the outcomes that you get from both yourself and your child. And you want to be very proactive. When you see that a child through either verbal or nonverbal behaviors is having a celebration, is having an upset, you want to proactively respond to your child's needs. And you want them, and even if it's something that was an outcome from a rule or a limit you set and they chose not to follow the expectation, then you come alongside the child and say, I get it. This is hard. This is really hard. And I bet you next time you'll do it in such a way that we won't have to put away the, whatever, Matchbox cars or whatever. Okay, next one starts with choices. So choices are very powerful. And what you're going to do, it seems like such a simple thing, but you want to deliberately remember to offer choices in any situation that can cause confrontation or challenges. And they automatically will set the boundaries of what is acceptable. So you give the child a choice, you let them know the outcome. And then you can come alongside them when they make a choice that leads to an outcome that's negative for them. You say, I get it. I know that's hard and I'm so sorry. I bet you next time you'll choose differently. You may even decide to say to the kid, you know what? Let's just practice this one more time. I'm going to give you a choice again and let's see what you do. And I might look at the kid and let's say the kid does the positive choice. And I might say, you know what? This is such a big change and such a big celebration. And then you marvel, how did you do that? I think we're going to go ahead and just accept that you made a good choice. And every once in a while,
Sandy,
huh?
let me let you finish that and then I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. I'm ready.
Okay, so one of the questions in the chat was, when you take their toys or whatever it is that you've taken from them, what is the reasonable amount of time before you return them? The parent said, I'd keep them for 100 years, but.
Well, yeah, and I love it because that parent's being really honest. What that parent's saying is, I'm so pissed that those toys are going away for 100 years. Right. And so that's what you want to overcome. And I love that you said it because you point out to all of us how important it is still to remain rational and not to get on the kid's level of, I'll show you who's in charge. The length of time, I guess what I would do, some of it depends on the developmental level of the child. So again, we have two ages, our developmental age and our chronological age. You can have a 12-year-old kid who's acting like a 5-year-old in terms of being refusals, in terms of being oppositional. So again, I might, when you say for how long or how many times, it just depends at the moment. If you are feeling like, I really need to hold this boundary, then you say to the kid, this is going to get put away for, until, and then you decide what that day will be until school's over this week, and we'll look at it again on the weekend. But remember that for the most part, the younger the children are, the harder it is for them. They don't have cognitive understanding and experience times and change in times and length of days like an adult does or like a teenager does. So you want to also remember the developmental level of the kid at that point. Does that help? Did I answer it, Deborah?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And so there's another thing here. We're not going to have time to go into it now, but I do encourage you to come back and also to go when we do the full training in the fall sometime. But I do encourage you to go to the website, because I think there are samples on the website, Pillars for Success website, that talks about point sheets. These are organized opportunities for children to earn something, and for you to organize what the expectations are by listing them. And the kid, in my home, the point sheet that would allow them to earn something, in my home they earned coins, would be done at the end of the day after dinner. And they had to be done on a daily basis. In other words, you couldn't wait till Wednesday and go back and do last Monday's. So it had to measure the behavior of that day. We don't have time now to go into the content of the point sheets, but you will see them online. And if not, contact Deborah, and we can figure out how to get some other materials to you to help you understand what those are. But point sheets, any way that you can help your child identify and measure concretely what is expected and the rewards they get for doing what is expected, the closer you are to being able to celebrate success with them. So we'll go to the point sheet, the slide, the PowerPoint slide that shows the two little kids together wearing hats. And it says, don't make the child share. So again, when a child is very young, it's almost like theft. When you take things away from them and make them share. And actually, all the kids I had in my home through the foster care years, they had their toys, and those were their toys. But guess what? I had my toys, and I was a frequent flyer at Goodwill, and you can find some pretty darn good things over at the Goodwill store, and you bring them home and clean them up, disinfect them. And so my toys I had control of, and I could certainly offer them toys and give them boundaries for how long they could play with it, or could they even try playing together. But I also knew when it was time to not even ask that they play together, because that would be a setup for a dispute. But I think it's just important that you not make children share. The way children experience that, it's kind of like having something stolen from them, and it's based on that power and control thing. So again, what I used to do, again, the kids that came to my home had so much loss and so much damage in their lives. And so I just went and got my own toys. And when it came time to sharing, whether Legos or whatever, I'd bring out my set of Legos, which was also an opportunity to be a role model for the kids, because they could see that I could comfortably share, and then I'd still get all my things back afterward. But I don't make children share, and I encourage you not to either. So encourage the child, going to the next slide, to repeat. Oh, so if you get a kid who keeps doing something that's just unacceptable, whether spitting, whether yelling, with what, sometimes I would just look at the kid and I'd go, wow. I said, can you do that again? Do you think you could do that 3 more times? Could you do that standing on one foot? And pretty soon the kid is going, I'm not going to do it anymore. It's amazing. Leave me alone. So you remember that how you respond to something is a very powerful factor in reinforcing that behavior. So I just kind of took it very lightly and said, wow, can you do that standing on one foot? Whether it was scream, yell, do whatever. And you'd be surprised how many behaviors went away as a result of that. Let's go to pillar 9. And then I want to go through a bunch of quick hints in the time we have left. And Deborah's going to cut me off. So pillar 9, honoring the child has amazing results. And actually, some of these are some of the concrete ideas. You want to thank a child. There's so many ways to honor children. Thank them for trying the task or even doing part of the task. Thank them for accomplishing the task, or maybe even having a good idea. Gee, that was a great idea. I hadn't thought of that. Thank you. Telling them how you felt calmly and respectfully instead of maybe pitching a fit or spitting. Following directions, maintaining control, or regaining control after having lost it. Wow, it looked to me like you were really upset and you started kicking the wall, and then it just seems like you calmed yourself down. And then there's a wonderful thing. You look at the kid and you go, how did you do that? And it's just amazing. I used to have a kid who'd look at me and he'd go, I mean, I wish you could see my face. He'd go, and he'd kind of roll his head to one side as if he was so embarrassed with the success that I was complimenting him on. It was fun. Or even for admitting a lie. Wow, that was very brave that you told me that you lied. Now, maybe the lie was a big one and there would still be an outcome for the lie, but that does not mean that there isn't a celebration. Also, because the child admitted the lie. So you want to focus very much on catching the child doing the right thing. Let's go to the next slide. And the next slide says, feel free to marvel. So that's an example I gave you before. How did you figure that out? How did you change your mind and decide to help? Great decision. You try that with your kids sometime and see how that works. It's amazing. And remember the definition of a happy family. I want you all to know that I have researched my entire life and come up with what I feel to be the 100% most correct and accurate definition of a happy family. Are you ready? A happy family is a family you don't know very well, because those are the ones that you see at the playground or see at church or you see in the grocery store, and everybody's behaving while your kid is trying to make baskets with the lettuce, in the fresh vegetable department, or beginning to have a tantrum at church. So you remember the definition of a happy family is a family you don't know very well, because if you saw much more of them, you'd see some of the same behaviors that you're dealing with in your own family. But they tend to make us feel so bad because we see all these other families and we think to ourselves, how come I can't be the parent that has that happen? Okay, let's go to the freebies. These are huge. And these are, how many of them are there? We may not get through all of them, but that's okay. Whatever we do will be helpful. So I used a timer. I used to use just even a little kitchen timer, or set the timer on the microwave to define quiet time or how long a child could continue an activity. So when the timer went off, the time was up. And again, we've already talked about it, but you marvel over the child. How are you able to calm yourself down? Or how did you turn that around and decide you were going to share your doll with Susie? Wow, that's amazing. Let me know when you're ready to have the doll back, because I'll help you do that. If you need the help, you just let me know. So that's the marveling. The other is, remember, it takes two to argue, and simply stop talking. And Deborah, I was a guest at one of your Parents Challenge dinners. And I remember I brought my foster son at the time with me, Zach. And I remember Zach standing up when I did this one, that it takes two to argue, and simply stop talking. And Zach stood up in front of this whole crowd of people from school districts and parents and professionals. And he said, it's true. I can't get her to argue with me. She just simply stops talking. And if people are looking at him like, really? I mean, it was amazing. When a child is venting, ask the child to wait until you get a pencil and a paper. And what I used to do is I'd say, wow, I see that you're upset. What you are saying is so important. Can you just wait 1 second? I'm going to run and get a piece of paper and a pencil because I want to write down what's on your mind. And you can't believe by the time you get done making this list, how many times the kid will be calmer. And where you say, is there anything else, or is this it? Thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll go over that again sometime when you feel like you're getting upset, because I'm really listening to you. And then you focus on actions, not words, because remember, children are concrete thinkers. And I have several acronyms in my training. WIFM is the what's in it for me rule, which is, again, children are very self-centered developmentally. So you show them how they will benefit by doing what you ask them to do. Okay, next one. These are just one after the other. A sense of power overcomes refusals. Let your child help to decide when and how a task will get done. So if it's going to be clean your room now or clear the table now, and you're getting refusal, you might say, well, now doesn't seem like the good time. How about in 5 minutes? How about if we set the timer? Do you want to set the timer or should I? You empower the child in some way, and then you set the timer. I used to just have a little timer I bought at the dollar store. And when that went off, it was time. You can use your oven timer. When your child does listen to you, you thank them. You acknowledge that they have done it. And you want to be sure so often, and I guarantee you, if you go home and watch for this, you will see how many times you have overlooked the positive. Because honestly, we're so exhausted that we're just so glad to have the absence of irritation that we don't realize that we're not honoring it. So notice when your child is doing the right thing or half of the right thing, or even does the right thing one time. Again, if a child refuses to do a task, ask him if he can do part of the task now, and then ask him which part. You're just trying to get them off of that place where they constantly have to dig their heels in and be oppositional. If a child, next slide, if a child refuses a request, don't argue, simply tell the child how you're going to do it. And then we again go to that WIFM, what's in it for me? Use the WIFM rule when making requests. You show the child how he or she will benefit by doing what you ask them to do. Honor the child's fear of the boogeyman and arm him or her with solutions. And so I don't know who lived under your bed when your kids were little, but my kids had some boogeymen, and definitely my foster kids did. So I remember going down to the dollar store and buying a plastic jar for, 10 cents or whatever it was. Now their prices have gone up, but and putting just some water in it and telling them it was boogeyman spray and saying, next time you see the boogeyman, let me know. I'll go get the bottle and you can spray under there. And that chases the boogeyman away. And then you have the kid look back under. Do you still see it? Boy, and you look under too. Boy, I sure don't. That boogeyman ran, didn't he? Okay. And if the kid says, yeah, I still see him, well, give him another squirt then. And what if your kid refuses? Then you tell him how you're going to do it. For instance, cleaning the room or whatever other thing needs to get done, put away toys. And remember to thank your child. Remember to recognize when they do the right thing, like listening, following directions, whatever. And focus on what the child does well, not on what he or she can't do. So often we get stuck in the negative because we're tired and frustrated. And what you want to remember is to intentionally focus on the positive. Every time you mention even a negative behavior, that's a form of reinforcement. You are adding attention to that behavior. And again, when a child refuses, offer choices and a reward for cooperating. Well, you don't want to do your choice tonight. Is that what I heard you say? You weren't going to clean your room tonight? Well, when do you think you could do it? Tomorrow's Saturday. Gosh, I know you like to watch cartoons starting at 9 o'clock. Do you want to do it before that or skip cartoons? And you can do it while the cartoons are on, while your sister's watching cartoons. Oh, you don't want to do it at all? Well, how about if I help you get started? How about if we do it that way? You see, you just keep working with the kid. Okay, the very last page is, if you can't get your rowdy child to listen, try whispering. You can't believe how attention-getting a whisper is, and try it. And you can flip a negative to a positive and instead of telling your child what he did wrong, tell him the part that he did right. And focus what you want him to do, not on what you want him to stop doing. And some of these are repeated, but that's intentional. And tell the child the behaviors you want, not the qualities you want. You don't want your child to be polite. I don't know what that means. What behavior would the child perform that would tell you, that would exhibit that the kid is being polite? And again, I cannot emphasize enough to remember the rules of a power struggle, because whenever there is a power struggle, there is always a winner and a loser. And whenever there is a winner and a loser, the loser will always reactivate the power struggle, because the loser doesn't like being a loser. He or she wants to be a winner. So let's go to the very last slide. Give yourself credit, recognize growth, celebrate positive change, and honor baby steps. And congratulations to all of you. Deborah, congratulations to me. It's 7:49. How'd I do?
Very good. So,
Can we leave it to any questions? Because you said I had till 7:50. I have
well,
one.
we want Melanie to be able to share.
Oh, I forgot Melanie. Yes, Melanie is the perfect conclusion for this. Melanie is someone who came to my training some years ago, who was a very frustrated parent and to her grandson. And Melanie worked so hard at absorbing and being able to use these principles of this training. And Melanie, I'm going to turn it over to you. How are things going?
Oh, things are going phenomenal. He is a teenager now, so we have some issues with school and homework. Typical teenager, he wants to play his Xbox all the time. But my child responded to the marveling. I guess I wasn't doing the job I should have been doing. I was always criticizing and not telling him the good things he did and the good behaviors and the things that really made me happy. And when I started doing that, my kid totally changed. I mean, it was World War III in this house, literally yelling, screaming all the time at each other. He would never do anything. He would just shut down. I took the class 3 years ago, and then last year I took the review, and I'm glad I took it again, because you cannot get enough of this stuff. It changes your whole dynamics in the house. I mean, my house is calm now. We don't fight, we discuss things. At first, he didn't like I'm going to give you a choice. He didn't like that. He wouldn't make a choice. After about 2 months of not making any choices, and grandma was making them, he makes the choices now, and he makes the right choices. And I just tell him, oh, you did that so good. You know, every time I see an opportunity to tell him positive things that he's doing, he responds phenomenally. I mean, this stuff really works. It works. And, I'm going to take it again next year, because there's so much to learn. And, you know, even though you're doing a lot of this, it's good to review it. It really is, Sandra. This stuff is incredible.
And I have not paid her a penny. This is
no,
really
it's just wonderful. And I never gave my kid reward. We started limiting his Xbox. When he gets good grades, he can get 2 hours a night. I never gave him money. I couldn't get him to clean his room. Okay, I'll tell you a deal. I know you're a teenager, you want to have money. Every Friday morning, I'm going to go down. If your room is clean, you get $10. He gets $10 almost every single week. And I don't have to go down and complain. I don't have to clean his room. I don't have to back stuff up. He does it. So it does work. And I think consistency, you're right. You just have to stick with it. The same thing over and over and again. And they finally get it. My kid got it. I have no problems with him at all anymore. I mean, other than typical teenage stuff, you know, that's it. So thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. We appreciate
And
that.
Melanie came with a lot of frustration, and she even took time. I remember we met at a public library and went over the rules and tools of the training again, and she had her grandson with her. And I mean, she put in the work, she absorbed the new perspectives, and it is unbelievable the effect that it's not unbelievable, it's very celebratable.
Yes, and it changes your whole life. My life, my child's life, and our whole family dynamic. It's just incredible. It's
Melanie, thank you.
really incredible. I can't believe it. It works. It works.
Now, the only other thing I want to say to you, but I will never admit that I said it. These rules of human behavior don't just apply to children.
No, they don't.
So please
Yeah.
remember that they can be used with other adults in your life also. And I'll not say any more at that point.
Well, thank you so much. This is an incredible class. It really is. I wish every parent would take it. It's almost like the core purpose classes. Incredible, life-changing.
Oh, thank you, Melanie. Any questions from anyone before Deborah cuts me off?
Well, I'm gonna cut you off only
Oh,
because
all right, I'm
I'm
done.
actually, because, simply because that's just what I do. But I am going to put everybody in a breakout room very quickly. You're gonna have 3 minutes in that breakout room. And I want you to share, there's only gonna be about 4 people in each room. Share something that you learned tonight that you're going to begin to utilize that you've not done in the past. So I'm gonna click on it, open up all the rooms. You're gonna move into a breakout room and you're gonna be brought back in about 3 minutes. So there's 4 people in the room. You should be able to share in that time period. Please begin. Sandy, don't go out.
Were you guys able to hear me at all?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, just reminding myself not to play in that power struggle with my teenager, and be creative and try other methods is a really good reminder for me. Make my life a lot better, and probably his too. So
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
yeah, thank you.
All right, so everybody back? I think we are. So just a couple of announcements. We will be offering the class itself in the fall, and it is a 6-week session class. So for those of you who really want to delve into it, there's a workbook that goes along with it and all of that. Then I encourage you to consider that in the fall. And those who want to repeat the class, who've already taken it, you certainly are welcome to do that as well. There are a couple of just really quick announcements. We will be sending the Parent Student Journal and the registration out on about the 18th of April. We're in the process of testing it to make sure we don't have any bugs and so forth in it. And that will be sent out. So please make sure that you complete the journal and then get your registration in, and it'll indicate the time period of when it needs to be returned and when report cards and so forth need to be returned. Those are the final pieces. Your journal is the final piece in order for you to move forward and be part of next year, 22-23. We'll be looking to receive that. Also on April 26th, those of you who have middle and high school students, we are having an online class. Can I call you back in 5 minutes? Going to be in conjunction with Harrison School District 2. But really the emphasis around this event is having an opportunity to share with you some information about organizations that are offering jobs for students, as well as internships. And we just want to invite all of you to consider attending this event because it is going to be pretty powerful. So Goodwill is going to be there talking about their BankWorks program. Myron Stratton is going to be there talking about a CNA program, an opportunity for high school students to be able to work and then earn their CNA. Careers in Construction are going to be there talking about opportunities in the construction arena. And then Spark Mindset is going to be in attendance talking about cybersecurity, which is one of the fastest growing businesses, or careers. And he'll be talking about it from the perspective of apprenticeships for high school students, as well as job opportunities for adults as well. And then also we're going to be doing our STEM camp for middle and high school students in July. It is free to Parents Challenge families, and opportunity to really introduce STEM in a way that it'll be fun and engaging and understanding for all. So Tuesday, April 26th, 6 to 8, we will provide dinner. We also anyone who attends will receive a gas stipend for attending. We know gas is pretty expensive right now, and so we certainly want to compensate you for that. You'll also be able to do childcare allotment for attendance. We really want a good showing of Parents Challenge families. So come out. You never know if your scholars are interested in STEM. Sometimes they're afraid, oh, I don't like math, or I don't know science. Come, because to hear about all of those different opportunities will be fantastic for both scholars as well as families. We will be again doing a summer event at the ballpark, and that information will be forthcoming. And then those of you who have seniors, as well as rising seniors, to be seniors next year, we will be doing our event up at Bear Trap Ranch again in July, and more information will come out regarding that. So that will be for those who are just graduating, and then those that will be seniors next year. So look for those opportunities and get your scholars involved. All of these, again, are being provided based on input from parents. And so we want to have a good showing for those. Any questions on any of that, you can certainly email me and I'll give you more details, and I'll also be sending out additional information in regard to that.